I wanted to do a follow-up piece to the kind of video diary that I did last week, which was in the immediate aftermath of this psilocybin trip, which had left me very kind of raw and emotionally exposed, but still was overall a very positive experience. So now we're kind of pretty much exactly 1 week later, and I thought I'd share where my head is at and what the last week has been like and how I'm starting to integrate this experience into my day-to-day activities. So 1 week later, I would say the narrative remains the same. I still view this as an incredibly positive experience. And I must say I've had a lot of great interactions with you guys over the last week. I've had some really beautiful sort of comments and support. And I think the thing that became apparent to me, which I sort of wanted to cover in this sort of vlog, is how I want to normalize this conversation around psychedelics. So a lot of the comments that I received were expressing support for just that I was expressing these things. And first of all, I want to say I really appreciate those. It really touched my heart. But I think it also raised the point that we need to normalize this conversation around psychedelics. So that when people are having these experiences, that it's not seen as anything unusual to be able to talk about them in this kind of very frank and open manner. So within the kind of the psychedelic community, it covers a wide spectrum from people who sort of see them as bordering on almost like religious experiences to people who see it as like very sort of cut and dry, it's just drugs and we're getting high kind of thing. And I think as with all kind of voices in any sort of sphere, the stuff in the middle gets lost a bit. So the kind of what I would say like the normal voices. You see this a lot in kind of like political conversations. And that's what I'm hoping to do here with my voice on this channel, is to put out a voice for the kind of, the everyday experience, the people who are looking to get the benefits from this without sort of completely going over the diving board into sort of, reality bending conversations or being completely dismissive and just saying, oh, well, it's just drugs and you're just getting high. We've got to find a way, I think, to sort of I think the phrase I would use is to normalize these conversations, to bring these spheres together and just have a middle ground. And that's not to be dismissive of those two sort of, two voices on the outer spectrum. There's a lot of fun and creativity and exploration that can be had, delving into these deep concepts and exploring, what this means in terms of sort of consciousness and the universe. And I think there's also a lot of fun to be had in the sort of the hardcore science of like what is happening at a sort of like at a chemical biological level when these substances take effect. So I'm not saying that this is the only way and this is bullshit. I guess I'm just looking for a more like holistic view of all this stuff, whereby it's something that can sort of really glue it together and just bring it into our sort of normal society conversations without it being seen as this wacky thing that, potentially crazy people do. I think a good example of people who do this really successfully is some of the people I look to as kind of influences, which is like Terence McKenna or Sam Harris. Now, Terence McKenna could be as out there as anybody who can be out there, but he also spoke in this very sort of clear, lucid way. And even though he was talking about fantastical sort of experiences, he could do it in a way that pretty much anybody could understand. I mean, I've seen people listening to Terence McKenna who I wouldn't have dreamed would have had any interest in this subject of psychedelics and just been transfixed and spellbound because he has this way of describing it. He also can use a lot of this kind of fluffy poetic language, but he also is very grounded, the kind of the way he speaks about these things. It's very no bullshit. And I think that's why Terence McKenna got so popular. And I think you can also see the flip side of this, as that when he did start going a little bit off the deep end, when he started talking about all these time wave zero and stuff, a lot of people lost interest there and were he instantly kind of went into kind of very crazy crank territory and thankfully managed to come back from it. But I think it illustrates the point that there is a way to talk about these experiences without going completely nuts, still bringing and keeping all that kind of fun consciousness, sort of, the benefits, all the good stuff can stay. But incorporating the kind of the full experience and normalizing it. And another one of my kind of influences who does this really well is Sam Harris, who, again, is seen as like a neuroscience scientist, almost comes across as like kind of quite square, but is super deep into meditation, altered states, has done a lot of experimentation with psychedelics, and again, can talk about these things in a way that it doesn't seem alien or bananas. No one's thinking that, when Sam Harris talks about taking a psilocybin trip blindfolded, no one's thinking that Sam Harris has lost their mind, because he just does it in a very rational, normal way. And this is the kind of the voice that I'm trying to put out there, and I think it's what I would like to see more of in the psychedelic community. More of this just sort of, rational talk without dismissing the sort of, the things at the two ends of the spectrum, because I do believe there is, this topic around spirituality. Spirituality means something. It doesn't necessarily mean guys with sitting in the clouds in white beards in heavens with 72 virgins or all that crap, but there is a feeling of spiritual fulfillment, and I've made a video about that, and we can sort of you can look at that to see how I would define that out. There is clearly something happening chemically and biologically, and that's also worth exploring. And I know I've said, in other videos, like I don't care and stuff like that. I don't mean to be sort of kind of flippant and dismissive of the whole thing. What I mean is that for me, the experience itself is primary. That's the bit I'm interested in, the experience. The other stuff is interesting, but at the end of the day, I am experiencing my experience. This human life is my experience, so that's what I'm primarily interested in. And whether the actual explanation for that experience turns out to be transdimensional portals or aliens or ghosts or ancestral spirits or just drugs, I'm fine. It's all, and any explanation's fine. It doesn't make a difference to the experience that I had. Just in terms of the outcome of the experience itself, this week's been good. I'm feeling really sort of positive. I've still got it all kind of stewing around in my head. I'm still processing it, and I'm still sort of thinking back to it. I need to, it has been a little bit of a busy week because I've had my daughter's birthday this week, so that was a joyous event to fit into this, and especially as I was coming out of an event that revolved around my old childhood, and then just to then be involved with like my own children going through their own kind of event. She was becoming a teenager. She was 12. She became 13 on Wednesday. So yeah, these psychedelic experiences fit, in my opinion, perfectly easily into everyday life. There's no sort of disconnect here whereby, you have an experience like this and then you spend 12 days cowering under a blanket, shell-shocked with PTSD. I don't think so. I think these fit perfectly well in that I can do something like this on a Friday night, have this sort of ingress of feelings and emotion, have my eyes opened, and still be a fully functioning human being. And, I don't want to necessarily disappear into a cave and sort of lose myself in consciousness. So, I went to work on Monday and it was absolutely fine. I had a good week at work. I was out with my wife last night. It all fits together. It's not, you don't have to be completely in the sort of enspongle land of consciousness or completely sort of cut and dry and not talking about any of this, the emotional stuff. I think there's a bit in the middle, and that's a bit I want to promote. And I've not got any kind of like master plan or anything for doing this. This is not me trying to lay out some sort of manifesto. I'm just sort of voicing my opinions on where I stand in all this. So hopefully that made some sense. Again, let me know what you guys think about this kind of like stream of consciousness format that I'm doing here. For me, it's a bit of a win because I just get to sit on my couch and blurt my ideas out. I'm still going to keep doing the other stuff as well, the kind of stuff where I'm talking to other people in the psychedelic community, and also do my kind of more video essay type stuff. But yeah, I thought this seemed to be something I can do quite quickly, and you guys seem to enjoy it. So let me know in the comments, do you want to see more of this kind of stuff or not? Okay guys, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much. Speak to you next time. And one additional thing that I forgot to mention earlier that a lot of people have been asking me for was some sort of playlist about the kind of music that I listen to when I'm on a psychedelic experience. So I've put together a playlist on Spotify. I will put a link in the description below. So the playlist is called Adeptus Psychonautica. So if you search for that, you should find it. It's got about 20 songs in at the moment, but I'm going to grow it over time. And this is, the kind of stuff that I listen to while I'm taking, say, mushrooms or something like that at home. It's a bit of an eclectic mix, mostly kind of like psytrance stuff, but some very sort of ethereal stuff in there. So hope you like it, check it out, and yeah, I'll keep adding more stuff to it.